just like as an example, like if I said, hey, that's a great guitar sound, we all tend to have, in our culture, we have a common idea of what, like it might not be the same sound, but we all have sort of a common idea of what we think a good guitar sound is.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Howdy out there in Wi-Fi computer land. This is A-Train coming to you from the catacombs here in Nashville. It kind of feels like a catacomb. I'm in my studio, really, and there's no like running water or anything like that, stone that you would associate with a catacomb. But anyway, man, we got a great guest today. It's a beautiful day outside. I think it's going to be one of the last for this season because customarily when Halloween kicks in here in Tennessee, winter starts and it ruins everybody's Halloween celebration. But anyway, I don't go trick-or-treating, so it doesn't matter to me. So, my guest today, I'm going to stop being stupid. All right, let's go. My guest today has been a distant friend of mine for a while. It's the kind of friend that you meet maybe once in passing, but you hear things about them that you relate to, which makes them your friend because there's a commonality in the soul there, in the heart, and you kind of go, oh yeah, he does that. And you hear these things and you become close. I don't know how that works, but it works. And,
seems to work.
Yeah. And he's agreed to be on the show today. And I'm thrilled about that. So would you welcome my friend, Mr. Ric Hordinski. How you doing, Rich?
Hey there. I'm good, man. I'm good. You sound good.
Oh yeah, I'm good. I had a good night's rest and stayed away from the news for the most part today, and so I'm good.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot. What are you doing? What's your day today?
I've been mixing music all day.
Really? What are you mixing?
Some mixes. Well, actually, apropos to your theme here, I'm mixing a record of, it's sort of like, I don't know what you'd call it, interfaith music or something. I'm a music director. I help out as a music director for a group here in Cincinnati called Just Love, and been doing some recording over the last month or so for a little CD project, collection of songs, and just been mixing that all day today. Mm-hmm. Big fun. Though.
Was that opening number part of that?
No, that's something from a record of mine that will come out probably in the spring, hopefully. Tracked, cool. But not mixed yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I just heard, I just got the new, can't think of his name now. Anyway, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Okay, I got it. John Scofield's new record.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Oh, everybody keeps telling me about it though.
Oh yeah, it's great. And then a friend of mine who I was talking to on Sunday, and just like going on and on about the record, and Bill Stewart And he sent me a link to this Blue Note concert that they did back in 2004 that's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Was it the same band?
Yeah. Well, it's Steve Swallow on bass.
Oh, wow.
Bill Stewart on drums and John on guitar.
That's great. I loved that band. I loved when Dennis Chambers played with them, too.
Oh, yeah. But I
really
kind of gravitate towards Stewart a little bit more.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
They're both amazing.
Yeah. Stewart's got that jazz touch.
Yeah. Dennis is more of the backbeat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dennis is a lot heavier handed. Yeah. That's
true.
So are you teaching today?
No, not teaching today. No, got a little break.
For those of you who don't know, Rich teaches over at the conservatory of at the University of Cincinnati. What class is that you teach?
Depending on the semester, I teach a few different things. I'm teaching classes in lyric writing and songwriting this semester, as well as some classes that deal with like the philosophy of recording and arranging music. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff.
Give us a little taste of the philosophy of recording.
Well, we talk a little bit about how culturally dependent recording and what we think of as things sounding good are. Just like as an example, like if I said, "Hey, that's a great guitar sound," we all tend to have in our culture, we have a common idea of what, like, it might not be the same sound, but we all have sort of a common idea of what we think a good guitar sound is. And we get that because largely, and even younger generation kids get that from the music of the 70s. When they think of a great guitar sound, they think of Led Zeppelin, or they think of Peter Frampton or something like that. And that's like when you're working on music, you've got reference points, and the reference points are very, very cultural. So we talk about stuff like that, and getting, just kind of trying to dissect what we think of as a great drum sound. We talk about Sound City, where a lot of classic rock drum sounds were made, and you could go the other way and talk about Rudy Van Gelder and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Producers.
And most of these people are in the pop world.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah. It's interesting.
How long have you been teaching there?
I've been teaching there part-time for probably, I think, about 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And how did that come about?
It's inspiring. One of the professors there knew about some of my work. He had worked in the studio with a band that I think I produced a song or two for back in the day, and he went on to get his PhD and became a professor there. And he wound up hiring me to teach a couple classes there, and I really enjoy it. It's great. The kids, in the jazz department, the kids they're crazy good. I mean, every year there are 3 or 4 kids that just blow your mind that they're 19 or 20 years old. Some of the grad students can just play absolutely anything. Wow. So that particular school has a relatively high bar to get into the jazz program. So,
oh, really?
It's pretty. They get there aren't too many people in there who can't cut it. I mean, they're pretty sharp. Yeah,
they have to audition. I take it.
Oh yeah, they have to audition, and the program is pretty rigorous. I've sat in on some of the arranging classes, and man, it's great stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Be around.
Yeah. You have a studio in Cincinnati.
I do. Yeah.
It's housed in this church, originally a church building built in 1905.
Yeah, actually, the newer part of the building was 1905. The older part's probably was like 1886. I think is what I remember. But yeah, really? It's an old building. Yeah, it's a great space. Wow. It's a nice space.
How did you come about getting that?
Well, it's about a block from my house, and a few years back, I had the studio. Our house was kind of like a duplex, in that there are two separate buildings, like two separate deeds and all that. And we had our house on one side and the studio in the other side. And through it, I knew that I wanted to get out of that space. The ceilings just weren't really high enough to make the drums speak properly. And I wanted more space. And so I'd been casually kind of looking for that space. And then a friend of mine moved to town from Philadelphia and wanted to buy a house. And we wound up selling him the other house that used to be the studio space and moving into this church space. So it was kind of good timing, and it's been a really beautiful space. Great sounding rooms, just acoustically sounding rooms.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Oh, thank you. It's a good place to come to work every day.
It's a good place to go, folks, to make your record. If you care anything about it, you will go to Cincinnati and record with Ric Hordinski. There it is.
Maybe. Thanks for the plug.
So tell me, did you grow up in Cincinnati?
No, I grew up in outside of Cleveland, in the eastern suburbs of Cleveland, up on what we call the North Shore, which is on Lake Erie, where we have real winters up there. I left there. I left home when I was like 17, and I moved to Cincinnati to play with the band, and I've been here ever since. That was 30 years ago, actually. Now,
what did you do before you left Cleveland?
Before I left Cleveland, I was just I was in high school, so I didn't really do much. I mean, I started playing guitar when I was probably 15, pretty late, for a musician. And
what was your impetus?
I probably had all the usual teenage impetus, and I was sort of an outcast, and wanted to be cool. And for some reason, it just really connected with me. I remember going into the band room. I played drums in like band in high school. Like that was my instrument. So that was my first instrument, was drums and percussion. And I remember opening this door in the band room, and they had an electric guitar in there. And for some reason, I just hadn't ever thought about it. And I had dreams about it that night. I was so obsessed with it. And I eventually tried to build an electric guitar out of telephone parts. Really? And I was just, I got really obsessed with it. And so, I practiced hours and hours and hours and hours through the rest of high school, trying to just get as good as I could get. And then
Who were you listening to?
Gosh, in high school, I was probably listening to the same people everybody else was listening to, in terms of the radio, a lot of progressive rock, Kansas and stuff like that. And whatever was on the radio. I wasn't a super big music snob, but I think I did gravitate towards some of the more flashy stuff. I probably listened to a little bit of Rush, but I grew up growing up in Cleveland. You were going to get nothing but classic rock all the time. So
right.
You can't swing a dead cat in there without hitting somebody in a Led Zeppelin t-shirt or a Genesis t-shirt. I listened to a lot of early Genesis. That was definitely a big influence on me. Yeah. Okay. That Peter Gabriel era stuff was really
Oh yeah, that was good.
Me at that era. But really around then is when I discovered Phil Keaggy, and he became a huge influence on me. Just his technique and his just overall, his musicality is so deep, on so many levels, classical stuff and, rock stuff.
And you've worked with Phil.
I produced a record.
In what capacity?
Won a Dove Award for a record we produced, and I co-wrote the record with him and produced it. And then we did a tour, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I was musical director for the tour, which is, I think if they put anything in my tombstone, it would be that I was musical director for Phil Keaggy. And anybody who knows anything knows how weird and wrong that is. But, nevertheless, I was MD for Phil Keaggy.
That's great. How big was the band?
I think it was a 9-piece band. It was a big band.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a cello player, and we had a reed player, a woodwind player, keyboard player, drummer, percussionist, keys, bass. Yeah, so it was maybe 6 or 7, maybe 9 is big. Yeah, Johnny Sfera played drums for that tour.
Johnny Sfera?
Sfera from Glass Heart, John Sfera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From Phil's first band.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
it was a fun tour.
Dang. So, did you had you played in Cincinnati or have friends in Cincinnati? Someone lured you to Cincinnati, or did you just, I'm going to Cincinnati?
No, so through a series of coincidences, there was a band, like a Christian rock band, was based in Cincinnati, and I knew that their guitar player was leaving through a friend of a friend, and they were looking for a guitar player. So I basically came down and auditioned and kind of refused to leave. I think they were happy to have me, but, became lifelong friends with those folks. And, I moved here, and then a month later we went on tour in Australia and New Zealand and did a little bit of that stuff for a couple of years. And that led me to doing, more, session work and live stuff in Nashville at that point. Yeah.
Did you ever live in Nashville?
No, I lived there for weeks at a time, getting ready for tours. Yeah. But I've never had a house there or anything. No.
Mm-hmm. So who else did you tour with out of Nashville?
Well, the first like big proper tour I did was with Margaret Becker and Michael W. Smith, Eye to Eye tour. And that was touring. I think you might have played drums on that record. It was an Immigrant's Daughter record. We did a big tour, and that was really nice. My first big tour, someone was setting up my gear every night and tuning my guitars.
Was Daryl Anders playing bass on that?
Yeah, Daryl was playing bass. We had a great time. Yeah, I miss Daryl. Talk every now and then.
Yeah, he has a record out now that's doing pretty well over.
That's what I hear. Now he's a brilliant musician, great bass player. I love his playing. Good pocket.
Yeah.
Pocket. Yeah. So Daryl was a bass player on that tour. Yeah. For the first part of the touring. Yeah.
So you would come here for rehearsals and, of course, to catch the bus. And
yeah. I've done a lot of that over the years.
Yeah. So from Margaret, what did you do?
From Margaret, I did a few other things. I was musical director for Larry Norman for a little while, which was probably the weirdest gig I've ever had. And
how is that?
Oh man, it was just I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but it was weird all around.
There's a friend of mine, Gregory Thornberry, just wrote a book on Larry Norman.
I think I heard about that. I should read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was when all that weirdness went down, I was playing a gig with him. We were playing it was like the 20th anniversary of his first record or something. And I was musical director, and we were at like Estes Park, Colorado or something, getting ready to play this big gig with an orchestra. And like that day, a huge magazine article came out, like this huge expose about him. And we had to play a gig that night. It was just the weirdest thing. So weird.
The expose wasn't that endearing?
No, it was, I don't even remember all the stuff. It was and I don't even remember the facts. The whole weirdness with Randy Stonehill's wife and all, I don't even, So I don't, and honestly, I have no real insight into any of that other than he was just a pretty weird dude. He had a weird manager. But it was a fun experience.
Okay. And after that, what'd you do?
After that, I can't remember I remember doing a little bit of touring here and there, and then basically I finished playing with Margaret and decided to do. I remember actually I was at Jan's house in Nashville when someone called me to do an Amy Grant tour, and I had just started this band with my friends called Over the Rhine. And I remember calling my friends and being like, "Hey, should I do this Amy Grant tour?" And they were like, "No, you should just pass. Just come back and do this. Come back and do this thing." And I did. And I think it was a good call. I'm not really sideman, that on that level. I'm not. I don't love it. I'm too quirky for that probably. And, but it's fun. I mean, doing those big tours is fun. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
You getting to eat good food and sleep in nice hotels and all that. It can be fun.
Nice bus. People
doing
everything for you.
Nothing like waking up in the city where you're going to play. That's so nice.
Right. I used to come home and stare out the kitchen window for at least 3 days.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do.
Of course, I always had to do the thing where the bus would get back at like 4 a.m, and then I would drive back to Cincinnati, watch the sunrise, sleep all day.
That's rugged, man. That is rugged.
It was hardcore.
So tell me, how did you start Over the Rhine, meet these guys, decide to do this?
Well, it's a little convoluted, but I had moved to Cincinnati to play with the band, and one by one, the other members of the band, original members of the band, were kind of phasing out. And so I kind of talked to my friends who I'd been in a band with in college to come down and play. And those were all the people in Over the Rhine, with the exception of the singer. We had the band, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do about singing. We experimented with like doing instrumental stuff or with me singing. And then we decided we just need to get a great singer. And we all remembered this girl that was in our in the music program where we were at music school that we studied with. She was a classical major, and she sang with me at my senior recital. And we called her down and had her sing on some demos and asked if she wanted to join a rock band. And she was like, heck yeah. So she moved to Cincinnati. I mean, she moved to Cincinnati probably in like a month. Like we were like, let's do this thing. So she moved down here, and we started making that first record, right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of, so we had all gone to college together, with the exception of the drummer he lived in the town where we went to college, Brian Kelly. But we all went to college together. We'd all played music together in college for a long time. So it was kind of a continuation of other things that we'd done.
And how'd you come up with the name?
Well, Over the Rhine is actually the name of a neighborhood in Cincinnati. And when I first moved here, in '88, I was excited about living in a city. When I was in Cleveland, I'd always lived like in the suburbs. And so I was really excited about living in the city and the kind of energy of that. But the only place that I could really afford to live was this kind of broken down artist neighborhood called Over the Rhine. And it's probably a little bit like Ellison used to be in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
Like it was kind of dirty, but artists would live there. But it was like, lots of crack and that was kind of that era. So people didn't want to live down there. So my wife and I rented our first apartment down there for $250 a month. A beautiful, apartment from the late 1800s. And, and then when Linford moved down, he got an apartment a block over on Main Street. And, so he and I lived like a block and a half apart. So we would just walk over to each other's houses to work on music. But that neighborhood was called Over the Rhine. I guess the German immigrants thought that there was a canal that ran near there, and they reminded them of the Rhine River. And so Cincinnati is a super German city. So apparently they called the neighborhood on the other side of the canal Over the Rhine. So we adopted it before. So when we adopted that name, it was like people would avoid Over the Rhine. It was like the neighborhood that you didn't go into because you didn't want to get mugged or whatever. It's really funny because now the neighborhood's completely gentrified and it's super wealthy. So it's interesting. It has a completely different connotation now.
Yeah, that's like those places here in Nashville.
Yeah, like West Nashville. Although West Nashville is for that scare, but
Or East Nashville.
East Nashville, sorry,
East
Nashville.
Yeah. Everybody wants to get over here now.
That's what I hear.
So tell me, man, what was your greatest experience with Over the Rhine?
With Over the Rhine?
What's your most memorable experience?
I remember us being really excited when we signed a record deal. We had to have it notarized, and we were all super excited about that. We did a little tour with Bob Dylan. That was really fun. That was kind of exciting every night. Although on a musical level, nobody really paid attention to us.
What kind of rooms did you play with Dylan?
With Dylan, they were, like larger auditoriums, 2,500 seats, something like that. 2,000, 3,000 seats. Some bigger ones. Played a couple of hockey arenas, I think. It's been a minute since that happened, so I don't remember exactly. But that was fun. I remember standing in the catering line next to Dylan, that kind of thing.
Cool.
He got his hoodie on, not talking to anybody. That was fun. I mean, we were friends, and we certainly didn't always get along. We were probably more like family than friends in that regard. But it was really amazing to make good, what we felt like was really good music together, with people that we really cared about, and just kind of did it ourselves. We made our own CD back when nobody made their own CDs. People couldn't believe we made our own CD. It would have been like making your own record in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
So
what label were you guys on?
We were on IRS, which was an EMI label, but IRS was owned by Miles Copeland.
Right.
Sting's manager and all that.
Cool. How much touring did you do?
We did, I'd say we consistently did 100, 150 shows a year for quite a while. So we toured with Dylan. We did a big tour with Squeeze one year, and we did tons of shows on our own. We toured with Adrian Belew. That was one of our first like medium-sized tours, was opening for Adrian Belew.
Cool.
That was super. Yeah. We did a lot.
Yeah, I think Adrian's down here somewhere.
He is. He lives down by the airport. I've been over to his place before down there. Yeah, he's a sweetheart too. I love Adrian. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Adrian. You're a sweetheart, man. Love you. Call me. Tell me, how long did the band last, and what was the reason for not continuing?
Well, the band, I was in the band for about 10 years. I think I'm on 12 records or 11 records or something. Some of those are compilations or something. But in about 1996, we had decided to not continue with our record label. And it was probably more of a mutual thing. I don't know. I think it was more us than them. I think we felt like we could do something better. Although we had a great relationship with the label, I'm still friends with those guys. They still call me when they come to town.
Cool.
Yeah. And about that time, I think Karen and Linford were really, Linford's one of the main writers, and Karen's the singer who also writes really well. They really wanted to kind of do what they're doing now, which is that more singer-songwriter, a lot of ballads, a lot of mid-tempo stuff. It's really beautiful stuff, but it wasn't really what I was into at the time. And I think I probably wasn't really mature enough to understand what they were doing. And I was young enough that my ego was still pretty involved in all that. And I wasn't getting to write as much as I wanted to. And I felt like I was becoming a better writer. And I wasn't getting the opportunity to write quite as much as I wanted to. And I knew that for long term, that was not going to be a good career path to not be able to write and have it be used. In hindsight, I probably could have found out a way to make it work.
They were kind of hoarding the writing.
I don't know if it was hoarding. That feels like too strong a word to me. I think they were just really exploring what they wanted to do. And there was a little bit of frustration that we hadn't sold a lot of records. We hadn't sold a lot of records, and I think that they felt like maybe this was a way that would connect with more people. Like this was a style that would be more popular, which is probably right. So we made one at that point. We made one more record, ironically, an independent record called "Good Dog, Bad Dog," which I think has sold, I don't know, over 50,000 copies or something as an independent record. Which is pretty good for this day and age.
Yeah, that is. When did you make that?
We made that, I think, in 1996, and made that mostly at my studio. And that was really the first place where I felt like I was finding my feet as a musician. Like, what is it that I do? What am I good at that other people might not be as good at, or something? I had sort of earlier on, I had tried to really explore that kind of watch me go, zippy, fusiony kind of thing. And I just didn't, I appreciated it in other people, but I didn't have the drive to do it myself. So I kind of stepped away from that and got, became sort of more of a textural player. That's why you sent me
that note the other day that says, I like his chording better than I like his runs.
Oh, Chico. Yeah. 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 I have a student who's a Brazilian guitar player, and I showed it to him. He's like, "Oh, Chico. Oh, yes, he's the man." But I liked his arranging thing. But I love Pat Metheny, and I loved Alan. Alan Holdsworth was a huge influence on me, especially his chordal things. So and Julian Lodge, I love Julian Lodge, and I love, Schofield's great, Bill Frisell. I love all those guys. But I don't really try to emulate too much of that.
So, how do you come up with your thing? Who do you listen to today?
My own music.
You have violin music?
No. I said my own music. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It really varies. The last record I put out was a record of it was almost like Renaissance music. It was like 60s revival Renaissance music, which I love. I love that kind of layered acoustic guitar stuff. The stuff I'm working on now is probably a little bit more adventurous harmonically. It's probably for a while I was calling it not jazz because it's kind of like it's not jazz in that it's not swing based and it's not necessarily based on 2-5-1 stuff, but it does have some pretty adventurous harmony and there's a lot of improvisation in it. But it's not you wouldn't put it on and be like, oh yeah, that's jazz.
Is it a quartet or a larger?
It's usually just for practical reasons. It's usually a trio, just bass, drums, and guitar.
Cool.
I like the freedom of just having one or two notes under me if I'm trying to improvise. I like being able to turn the corner that way.
You don't like to have a keyboard player telling you which way to go.
I don't. It's probably because I'm not good enough, but but I don't usually enjoy playing with a keyboard player too much. It takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, they kind of dictate what you do too.
A lot of time, yeah. A lot of keyboard players they use a lot of notes.
Yeah. That's why. I think that's one reason Elvin Jones, he had a quartet, 2 saxophones, bass, and drums.
I love that setup. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I think of music when I was in college, and I had to study. I had like a split major. It was like half classical and half jazz. And I remember, we did a lot of early counterpoint Bach and stuff, and that stuff just really appealed to me. And I remember my friends, Linford actually, and my other friend Brent would be playing the 2-part inventions, which are just 2 voices. That are it's kind of like a canon fugue in that they repeat themselves. But I've always been really fascinated with 2 voices. And when I write stuff and I compose stuff, I tend to just always start with the outside voices and then fill in. So when I'm writing, I tend to just like that high voice and the low voice, and then I'll fill in the notes of the chord kind of sparsely rather than just sort of playing block chords,
Yeah. Just play the important notes.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I can figure out what those are. Yeah.
Have you read Footprints by Wayne Shorter?
I have not. Biography? I think we were talking about that. I have not read it. I need to get it and read it.
It's brilliant.
I would love to read that. I love Wayne.
You'd really connect with that, especially as a composer. The way he talks about
his writing
composing and stuff.
Yeah, his writing is amazing.
Yeah, it's I just finished it this morning. The book.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. Now, I didn't read any of your credits at the top of the show because there are so many. If I start reading, we'd just be starting this conversation now. We can't do that.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm interested in how did you meet Jim James, the Morning Jacket guy?
Morning Jacket. Well, I did some recording and touring with a guy on amazing songwriter on Sub Pop named Daniel Martin Moore, who's from Northern Kentucky, not too far from here. Really lovely person, a dear friend of mine, and Dan's super maybe best friend is Jim James, and so some of the records that I worked on with Daniel, Jim had played on. And when we did some touring not too long ago, we did some shows with My Morning Jacket up in, I think, Chicago and Milwaukee. And man, they're just the nicest guys. The most unassuming rock band you'll ever see. I played a show at in Louisville at Headliners, and all the guys from the band from My Morning Jacket were there, and I hadn't met them before. I mean, I knew who Jim was, obviously, but I hadn't met all the other guys in the band. And after we came off, we were just standing in the back, having a drink or whatever, and talking to this guy, really interesting, sweet guy. And I find out later, he was the guitar player for My Morning Jacket. Never said a word about it or anything. And when we toured, we did a tour with Iron and Wine over in the UK and England and Wales and Scotland and all that. And the drummer from My Morning Jacket he just let us use his drums for the whole tour. He was like, "Oh, here's the combination to the locker. Just go grab my stuff." And they're just the sweetest guys. It's the nicest,
Cool.
For this like loud rock band. We played in Chicago with Daniel. We opened up for My Morning Jacket, and they came and played. They were like our band while we were playing.
Oh, really?
So they came out. I don't know if Carl played, but I think everybody else played. And the drummer, Patrick, he's this huge like mountain of a guy. He just looks like a total new Kentucky shit kicker. He's got this red, long, curly hair, and he's like 6'2", 250 pounds. And he walks up to me after sound check, and he's like, "Hey man, I just want to make sure I wasn't too loud. Is that okay? I just want to make sure I wasn't too loud." I'm like, "Oh, no, man, you're good."
Give me a hug. Come here.
I know, totally. They're just the nicest people. I love it when you run into like a really great band and they're like just the nicest, most unassuming people.
Yeah. You still keep in contact with those guys?
I don't see them too much, no. Only when there's something going on.
Yeah. Tell me about your association with Tony Levin.
Tony, so who is not a huge fan of Tony Levin?
Yeah.
From people think about him playing with Peter Gabriel. They don't realize he played with John Lennon. He played with everybody. Suzanne Vega. I mean, he's just played with everybody in the world.
Right.
And I was producing a record for the guy that plays drums for me, Josh. And Josh was like, "We should get Tony Levin to play on this record." I was like, "Dude, we can't get Tony Levin to play. Who do you think we are?" And I was like, "Well, let me make a couple phone calls." So I called. My manager was Adrian Ballou's manager, and so obviously Adrian and Tony have played together a lot. So we made a couple phone calls and got him to play on the record. And I managed to work it out so that when his parts were done, I went to his house to pick up the tapes. I kind of finagled it that way because I wanted to hang out with him. And we got to spend the better part of an afternoon with him. It was super interesting. He's a sweetheart of a guy, and he has a fairly unassuming house up in sort of like near Woodstock, and he took me down to his basement where he records, and there's like laundry everywhere, and he had an ADAT machine and a Mackie mixer, and there's all those amazing Music Man basses just laying there, and we walk upstairs and like sitting on his table is a FedEx from Peter Gabriel, and they were working on I think they were working on the Us record maybe at that point. But it was really a lesson to me in that you think of these guys and working in these super high quality recording studios, and Tony was recording some of his parts for Peter Gabriel in his basement with an ADAT machine. So I was like, man, it really is all in the hands. It's not about the gear.
Yeah, right. It's like the old honky-tonk violin in the hand of a master.
Yeah. I mean, he, one note from him and it's him. He has such a sound.
Right.
But yeah, that was a great experience.
So you had sent him your tracks as well, and he did them at his house?
The tracks that we were working on for Josh's record. Yeah, he worked on them at his house, and it was fun. We hung out because we also have a mutual friend, the guitar player David Torn, is a friend of mine. So we got on. He rode his motorcycle, and we rode up to Woodstock where Torn lives, and I spent the afternoon with Torn.
Great.
So,
what was that like?
Oh, I love David. We've been friends for quite a long time. He played on one of the David Wilcox records I recorded a couple of years back. But David's he's a brilliant guitar player. He's played with David Bowie and just everybody. But yeah, he's a sweet guy, crazy, fun guy to hang out with for sure.
Wow, up in Woodstock, eh?
Yeah, he's up in Woodstock.
Okay. So tell us about people. I'm doing this because his resume was so long that I couldn't read it all. So I
tell people it's just attrition. If you stay in the business long enough, play with famous people.
Okay. I don't know. That doesn't work for everybody. But anyway, when I mention these people, I'm reading from his resume, and these are people he has worked with. So I'm not just pulling names out of the sky here to impress you guys. I'm pulling these off of his resume to impress you guys. Victor Wooten.
Victor, Victor lives in Nashville. He lives by you. I spent a day with him. He played bass on a David Wilcox record that I produced, and it was a song that was just voice and bass. So it was really interesting, and we just did take after take after take after take, and then it wound up not being on the record. But it was a real joy to just sit on the floor and listen to him do like 30 takes of this song, over and over and over. Just him, and it was like a click track and Victor and David's voice,
wow.
And it was super fun. And he's another really nice guy. I've been lucky. Got to work with a lot of really nice people.
Mm-hmm. And you did that at your studio?
We recorded part of that at my studio, but the part that we did with Victor, we did at Omni in Nashville.
Okay. Cool, man. You were down here and you didn't call me?
I'm trying to think when that was. Yeah, I guess you were already living there. Yeah, that would have been like 97 or something.
I had just moved here.
You just moved there? Okay, I couldn't remember.
Been here about a year in 97.
Okay. Right on.
You were on the stage with Johnny Cash, or did you perform?
I was on tour. I was on tour with David Wilcox a few years back, and one of the shows we did was opening for Johnny Cash at the Greek Theater. That was
cool.
In L.A. And that was it was super fun. It was not too long before he died, actually, maybe a year before he died. That would have been like 97, maybe. And I remember sitting backstage. And he walked back. He had his granddaughter, I think, on his shoulders. She was like 3 or something. And we were, he walked into the room, and he's a really tall guy. Walked into the room, and we were all just kind of dumbstruck. Like there he was in his black long coat with the little bow tie, just like a picture. And he looked over and saw me looking at him, and just walked over to me. And he was like, "Hi, I'm Johnny Cash." I was like, "Hi,
I'm Johnny Cash."
Rich. Yeah, he was really, really nice and kind.
That was
really my own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I just did a gig out at Bon Aqua, his farm out here in Tennessee.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah, man. It was great. And we got to have lunch in his kitchen.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Looking at all the older real country stars and songwriters.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Fluke Holland.
Who's that?
Remember, Fluke was Cash's drummer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
he had a lot of the original guys when I saw him. I wonder if he was playing. I know Luther was still playing, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well,
wow, that's cool.
I don't know, but Fluke is like 80-something now, and he's still playing.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's a really nice guy. We had a nice chat, took some photos together.
Oh, yeah. I aspire to that. I want to be playing when I'm 87.
Yeah, I want to be playing when I'm 80 whatever. But I want to be playing. I want to be playing because I want to be playing. I don't want to be playing because I feel like I have to.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
I hope the love of making music and playing will endure all that time, despite whatever, despite life's circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, and I feel like I've learned more in the last 4 or 5 years than I did in the first 25.
Why'd you say that is?
I don't know. I mean, I think one thing is that I learned to listen differently somehow in the last few years. Really made a huge difference in me. Things that I struggled with forever suddenly just got relatively easy, and that felt like a gift.
Yeah, listening is a gift. Yeah, you'll enjoy Wayne's book because he talks about listening as well.
Yeah, listening is everything.
What you don't play and why you don't play it. I'm trying to. There's this percussionist, this female percussionist who's deaf.
Oh yeah, Evelyn Glennie.
Yeah, have you listened to her thing on listening?
Yeah. I actually played for my class at the conservatory.
That is so cool. That's
it's
great,
amazing.
Man.
Yeah.
And to hear it coming from her, it's amazing. She can't hear what she's playing, but she plays really good.
Plays amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. So what kind of things move you these days?
Oh my. Anything done well, I think, is really moving.
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking to a friend of mine, actually Linford from Over the Rhine. We were just talking this morning, I should say texting like we do, in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he was saying, the bar for him has always been find something that astonishes me. And I felt like that's a good that's a good standard, just, mm-hmm. I want to be surprised by beauty as much as I can. I'm always looking for something that you turn the corner and surprises you with its, just beauty,
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's music or something visual or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I was getting back to Wayne Shorter's book. Wayne was saying that for him, none of his compositions are ever finished. They just keep on going somewhere, and he goes back to them, and sometimes he has does a fresh take on them. Where they go and how they end, or voicings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and he tells this one story when he was with Miles Davis. They had been watching a Cagney movie or some gangster movie like that, and he said, "Did you see the way he hit that guy just now?" And Wayne said, "Yeah." He said, "Well then, play that."
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's good.
So,
that's good.
Are you going to go on the road or tour or perform anytime soon?
There was talk of doing a tour in Eastern Europe, and I think the circumstances just didn't work out. Those things are so complicated when you're in those countries in terms of visas and money and all that kind of stuff.
Who was it with?
It would have been with my group. I have a group here that's sort of it's a side project, but it's kind of like ambient trash gospel or something. And we do I don't even know what you'd call it. It's like I don't know, Tom Waits gospel or something. Yeah. And we were going to take that over and do some stuff over there. But it didn't work out. But I'm hoping that we can get a record of that out sometime soon and do a couple of festivals and do some stuff like that. I mean, touring is a big commitment, and it's changed so much. The music industry's changed so much that it's hard to sort that all out, really.
Yeah.
But I've been laying low, just having family. My youngest daughter's still at home, and I toured a lot when my oldest girl was young, and sort of regret it. So probably we'll see as that evolves. When she goes to college, I may decide to go out more. I probably will, if I'm not too old.
Yeah. When is that? When does she go to college?
She'll go to college in fall of 2020, I guess. It's 18, 19, 20. Yeah, I guess she'll go to college in fall of 20. So, but we'll see. I mean, I did a tour a couple of years back. We did that Iron and Wine tour. Daniel Martin Moore and I did that Iron and Wine tour, and it wasn't, it was like, I think it was 6 weeks with being in Europe and here, but it wasn't straight. It was like 2 weeks in the UK, and then we were home for a week, and then out for 3, and then back for a week and gone for 2 or something. So I'm not opposed to doing stuff like that if it's good music.
Yeah. So besides beauty, what else inspires you and inspires your creativity?
Inspires my creativity. The only thing the only thing that makes the creativity thing go is just showing up and doing the work. It's not like, sometimes you'll pick up somebody else's guitar and you'll give you a little idea or something. But if I sit down and play for 2 hours, I almost always come up with some kind of idea that seems pretty decent. It's almost like having a kind of faith in the process that I just got to sit down and do this for a while, and then something comes. But I don't have any
practicing.
Oh yeah. I'm still hoping to get good, man.
Yeah.
I want to be good someday.
Me too. I want to be the best that I can possibly be of me.
Yeah, there's that famous story about, the cellist Pablo Casal was still, someone came over, he was like 90 years old, and someone came over to his house, and he was like still practicing scales or something. And they were like, "What are you doing? Why are you practicing?" And he's like, I keep practicing because I think I'm making progress. So I always think about that.
Yes.
And I do. I mean, I feel like I'm a much better musician now than I was 5 years ago,
Oh yeah,
so
me too.
I want to. Yeah. So I mean, I look forward to finding people to collaborate with, and I would definitely consider doing a nice tour. And one of the weird things about pop music is that about the time you get really good at it, you're kind of too old to do it.
Right.
In terms of the culture, right? That's where jazz is nice, because you can play jazz into your 70s if you got the energy. No one thinks twice about it. Classical music too, but pop music, there's a little bit of
the guy behind the screen.
Date. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Put some young guy out there. I'll play the parts. Yeah.
Right. Let's see. There was something I wanted to ask you about. Your relationship with Jimmy Abegg, and do you know Charlie well? Peacock?
Yeah, I do.
Have you ever done any work with them, like sessions?
I never did any sessions with them. I mean, it's hard to do sessions in Nashville when Jerry McPherson is there. I mean, Jerry's such a monster, and there are loads of great guitar players in Nashville, no question about it. I got to know Charlie a little bit just playing festivals. I was playing Cornerstone and all those festivals with Margaret or Larry or whoever. And we would cross paths and got to be friends that way. And then when Margaret hired me to play guitar for her, Charlie had just produced the record, and so he was kind of rehearsing the band, and that was my first like pro, really pro gig where like you got to have your act together, and you got to go out there and you got to get it right every time. And Charlie was just a great taskmaster. In that he was unfailingly kind, but he was just relentless. And I remember playing one of the parts from the record, and Jimmy had played on the record, so it was really fun because the guitar parts were all really good. And I remember playing one of the parts, and he was like, "You can't just play one part; you got to play all the parts." I was like, "That's 3 tracks on the record." He was like, "You're a professional; do it." And I got kind of mad. I was like, well, he did it it was 3 takes on the record. Like, he just didn't care. But then I did it, I figured out a way to do it.
Well, hey man, our hour has expired.
And that was fast.
Thank you for coming on the show, and maybe we can do a part 2 sometimes.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right, man. All right. Thank you very much. All right. See ya.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.